This is why I need Alex, I need a producer.
Yeah.
Just to remember, make sure to check everything. Ladies and gents, welcome back to Articulate with Steve McJones. Today we got This is the moment of truth. I always forget the person's full name. Will, I know your name is Will. What's your last name, buddy? You gotta help me out.
Ayres.
Ayers. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
How you doing? I'm sorry, I forgot your name
you're
right off
good,
the
bro.
bat. But it's funny because we really just met, for real, probably like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I could tell you were really passionate about like what you do. Well, give a little rundown. Tell us what you do here. It just, what your general vibe is.
Yeah. So, like we were saying earlier, in the fitness industry, I've worked as a personal trainer for Philadelphia sports clubs. I've worked on the production side for swim company. We were developing a swim product for at-home stuff that was called Slipstream. And then recently I was just at Restore Hyper Wellness. So we do IVs, cryotherapy, hyperbaric. So I've kind of gotten a look at the industry from like kind of all different angles. The most generic being that personal training. But I think that's what gets a lot of people into the industry at first as well.
But a lot of it is like health and fitness related, right? Like for athletes, I guess, or just for active people.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of college, I was definitely most interested in working with athletes.
Okay.
I'd played rugby and football in
Oh,
college.
you played rugby? I didn't know that. That's sick.
Man, yeah. Loved it. Great sport,
Yeah.
great culture.
I imagine you got to keep up your health and fitness just to play sports in general, like any
Yeah.
sports, right? So that was probably a big, peak in interest for you, right? Just being in those intensive sports, you got to like make sure you give your body some care, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
TLC, baby.
And that's what, when I was playing and talking to our strength coach, that was when I got interested in getting my CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist through the NSCA. Like a personal trainer certification, but allows you to work in NCAA weight rooms, allows you to train pretty much anyone from general population, older population, to athletes. So it gave me a little bit of that versatility. And as a personal trainer at Philadelphia sports clubs, like a lot of the times not working with athletes, but it also, I got to see from that point of view, like how much of an impact you can make. Because most of my clients there were like 75 plus.
Wow.
Most of them had not strength trained
So
ever.
so what was your first client? You're obviously, you don't have to give names unless you want to drop their name and be like, fuck no.
Brenda, I'll say she was not my like very first,
Okay.
but she was late 70s,
Okay.
had never done any strength training in her life, and she was like pretty nervous about it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff I was getting into is there, and the niche that I kind of fit in, because you don't want to have personal trainers kind of all going after the same target audience in a gym, if that makes sense. So I was focused on the older population, and I was doing single set to failure once a week.
What does that mean?
So, like in a normal gym, you'd see some guy doing like three sets of 10 or something on bench press. So a different style of training is single set to failure. And with that, you're obviously going to be a little bit like lighter weight, and it's ideal to do not with free weights, static weights.
Okay.
Because to be able to go to failure safely, you want to have ideally less weight at your weakest ranges of motion compared to your strongest ranges of motion. So just for like bench press, because it's easy for people to visualize. If you're up here at the top, that's where you're in the impact ready zone. Your body's able to absorb more force, and there's less kind of risk on the joints. But when you're down here at that same weight with the bench press, you're going to put a lot more stress on the shoulder joint, elbow joint, wrist joint. And specifically with the shoulder for bench press, that's where people are going to have issues.
Yeah.
So variable resistance training is the ideal. And so at PSC, we had Nautilus equipment designed by kind of the father of this section of strength training, Arthur Jones.
Okay.
So they have these strength curves built into the machine, so you're getting a little bit of modulation. Those are going to be like 1.5 times as much weight at your impact ready zone.
Okay.
And each machine has like this different ellipsoid that modulates.
That's a
it.
real word.
Yeah.
Ellipsoid. Okay.
Yeah.
But the ellipsoid, it modulates this sounds like science. This is crazy. It is science, isn't it? Shit. You're basically, at least from what it sounds like when you were working with these older people, and I'm pretty sure it probably applies to everybody, but you're really, really focusing on like you said, it's like strength building, but for very, very fragile people, and to do it with the lowest risk to your body as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's
absolutely.
like, you'll hear this from heavy bodybuilders to athletes to just like general gym bros.
Mhm.
You need to engage with heavy weights if you want to like really force an adaptation on the body.
Okay.
And so the question is, though, especially with older population, someone who hasn't strength trained in their life, how can we get them to interact with a heavier weight in a safe manner? Because for a lot of people, especially at that age, they don't want to go under the bench press. They don't want to like get on the squat rack.
Yeah. Well, my question is, do these older people want? Is their goal to like look muscly? Like, is that what they're going for, or is it to build muscle to maintain a certain lifestyle or something?
Build muscle just to maintain certain lifestyle.
Okay.
They weren't really
Because you said heavy weights to like do any sort of body transformation.
Yeah,
or
I should
something
say relative.
Relative, okay.
Relative, because to Brenda, she was late 70s.
and she wanted to get ripped.
Yeah. No, but it was funny because she was talking with her after a couple weeks. She'd already noticed like some improvements, and she was like, "Oh, I was at my book club, and like the other girls were like, "Oh my God, you picked up that chair," and she was like, "You had no idea how
Wow.
proud I was of that, especially because past 40, most of us will probably start experiencing it, but definitely past 60,
Yeah.
we're gonna experience sarcopenia and loss in muscle mass,
Mm-hmm.
and just for our metabolic health, our immune health, that can be really kind of the start of the decline.
Right.
And as you get older, for people, hanging on to muscle and
Mhm.
maintaining balance is really crucial for them, because the risks for them in daily life are, you may fall and break a hip.
Yeah.
If you just step wrong, if you don't have the right balance, or you don't have enough strength in that supporting leg.
Yeah.
So
Dude, balance is like a crazy. I didn't even think of that. Like that's a muscle or is that like a mental game that you're trying to balance your weight? You know what I mean?
it's definitely like you're using your muscles for it, but it's more like proprioception, like knowledge and awareness of where your body is in space,
Okay.
if that makes sense. But you'd need to have a
Interesting.
certain level of strength
Yeah.
throughout different muscle groups to
Well, it's like
have
almost
balance.
control. It's like not even necessarily strength. I feel like it's control over what muscles you're using to, like go one way or the other way just a little bit. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? That's nutty.
Yeah. And so, like, when you think about like playing sports or going on the slack line, it's like a lot of times it's just reps. Like you're going to then get muscle memory where you're not even going to have to think about balancing.
Yeah.
You can think about surfers like that as well. Like they're not thinking about, exactly how they're shifting their weight when they're riding a wave. It's all happening so fast.
Yeah.
They're just responding in space, in time, really quickly. And it's for a lot of them, and ideally for most athletes, when you're in that, you're in the flow state. You're
Yeah.
not really having to consciously think about, oh, I need to balance here. I need to put more weight on my front foot. It just happens.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to get to as an
Right.
athlete or just a human in your daily life.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you think there's a flow state within finding finding the proper ways to work out and proper ways to eat even? I mean, so yeah, that's the other part I wanted to get into is you also dabble into nutrition, right?
Mhm.
So where does that come in, and where did that come in for you in your journey?
Yeah, so I think like most guys growing up, like I didn't focus on it that much.
Oh yeah,
when
not
we
at
were
all.
young.
You're eating Chipotle what,
Um,
3-4 times a
Oh,
week?
easy. That and poke, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, when I was in college, I was not really thinking about it much. I did try to get a little bit better kind of by like junior, senior year.
Sure, when you're young and playing rugby though, like your metabolism can take anything and
Yeah,
break
you're
it
just
down.
burning it all off.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you don't even have to try for like the aesthetics or like healing when we're younger. We're just invincible. I don't know if you ever had that phrase with friends or anything, like, we're teenagers, we're invincible.
Yeah, we're invincible for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
And
yeah.
absolutely during those years, I felt it.
I'm never gonna die, dude. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, 20s are the same, man.
The
It's-
20s are pretty much the same. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking like we're like 45 years
Yeah.
old already. It does, dude. It feels like things are starting to weigh on me a little bit more, and I'm only 25,
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. And this is what we were talking about, like, so alcohol specifically, like. Over the past couple of weeks, it's just like I used to, just have a nightcap a lot of the time, or have 1 or 2 beers, or a glass of wine or 2 with dinner, and dude, like I would do that throughout the week, and then by the weekend, it's like, dude, it's like Saturday, and I don't even want to drink because it's just so heavy, it just builds up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But then the problem is for me, I'll go a night without drinking and I'll feel so clear the next day. I'll be like, fuck it. I can get a little wild tonight, you know?
I know. And then that next night, it feels even a little bit better because even in just that day, the tolerance went down a little bit.
Yeah. Was that ever like part of the program or any of your training or like the nutrition part? Was there any actual like educational stuff you had to figure out for that?
Definitely in college, like being in a fraternity and playing sports, trying to manage like both schedules, but still be involved heavily in both.
Yeah.
Definitely tried to learn as much as I could for how to prevent hangovers.
Right.
Not just
The
for myself,
IVs,
but
dude.
for my teammates. Liquid IV, like we were talking about last week.
Yeah. But I meant more like on a scale of like nutrition, right? So like kind of going back to like what we eat, what we consume at all times, you know? So like I kind of told you about how like, you know, like I find my diet to be fairly balanced, you know what I mean? Like having a nice, you know, fruits and veggies in the morning, yeah, like fruits in the morning and then like a vegetable with my dinner and then also chicken nuggets, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like also the most disgusting thing you could probably consume. So like when did you start to really pay attention to what you started consuming, you know?
At the end of college,
yeah.
and then I would say like I'm sure we'll get into it more too as well. But like once COVID hit and starting to see a lot of people around me struggling with health,
Right.
it was like damn. And then at that point, I was starting to hit my mid-20s. You're like, oh, my body is starting to change a little bit. I got to focus a little bit more about what I'm doing. So for me, something that has worked well is like trying to just get protein in the morning because that's going to help with feeling satiated, giving you energy throughout the day.
Right.
I was definitely one of those kids that grew up like just having cereal in the morning.
Yeah.
And when I was young and my metabolism was like crazy fast,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to make a difference,
Sure.
But now for me, like my goal is try to have like 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up. That was, I think, first actually put forward by Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
You've probably heard of him, podcast, author.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that kind of sets you up. I think he calls it slow carb because with that, instead of focusing on like trying to get below a certain carb amount for the day, like people that are doing ketosis are going for,
Right.
that's just focusing on making sure you're satiated so that you're not going to like snack and munch as much throughout the day.
Right.
And you can focus on having like, whether you're doing 2, 3, 4, one meal a day even.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was telling you is that my brother was on some high blood pressure medication kind of early. You know, he's still pretty young. I think he's 31, 32-ish. And he was talking about how he went on the carnivore diet. And I think a big part of going on the carnivore diet, and he actually got off of the high blood pressure medication from
Nice,
going
man.
on that, which is sick. But,
Yeah.
I think one of the big things when you eat protein, like we were talking about, protein is filling. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you're talking about keeping yourself satiated, it's like, if you eat a decent amount of meat during the day and that fills you up, and I think protein especially, like, really gets you to the core, you know what I mean? Like bones, it makes you feel full, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes they're empty carbs. It's like a saying,
Yeah.
But protein really like gets you good, and so that way you don't need to snack. You don't feel the need to have munchies at all time, So I thought that was cool, but then of course, it was like, oh, well, what about like vitamins and
Has he kept up with that?
veggies?
Is he still going carnivore?
Yeah, he's still doing it. But again, he does the athletic greens, which you said you're big on.
Yeah, dude.
Why are you big on athletic greens, dude? Just because of Joe Rogan? Is that what it is?
No, I mean, I'm sure I've definitely heard, that his advertisements on that. I'm not sure where I heard it from for the first time, but I was pretty sure it was a different podcast than his. But it's just a phenomenal product, I gotta say. Like,
Yeah.
I was definitely skeptical for a while too, but I'd had a couple of friends that had tried it out, and then like looking through it, seeing how they're a company that continues to iterate on their product, but it stayed the same price like since they've launched. It's like 15, 20 years, same price.
Well, I heard that it was kind of expensive, but I'm like, imagine the money you're saving on produce that you might, that might go bad in your refrigerator.
Oh
and,
yeah,
you know,
dude,
all that
I'm the
stuff.
worst with that. Like I'll sometimes buy a bunch of produce and I'm like, I'm gonna make like so much good stuff from this.
Yeah.
And like half of it goes to waste. And I feel
Right.
bad about it. But the other thing would be, like you said, the price to actually get all those same nutrients in, I'd have to buy an insane amount of produce because
Yeah.
it's not like you can just like go and buy spinach and it's going to give you everything that's in athletic greens.
Right.
There's so many different micronutrients in there. They've even got like mushroom complexes.
Yeah. Those are big.
And it tastes pretty solid. Like, I'm not going to lie, I've tried a bunch of other random green juice things. Because, like, like probably most young guys, like struggling to actually get enough veggies in.
Sure.
And most of them taste like shit. Like they
Yeah.
taste really bad. But athletic greens is actually tastes pretty solid.
Palatable.
Yeah, and I knew it was like really good beyond once like I felt it. Like you just feel better having it. I feel better. Like I know I'm actually getting like my baseline nutrition, even if I
Right.
like drink a ton that day and only eat pizza.
Yeah,
Like, if
yeah,
I had
yeah.
athletic greens that morning, I'm like, it still wasn't that bad. You know? I still did all right. But seeing it with my family, seeing that like they were able to hang on, like because my mom and my brother have, you know, had issues with their health, had issues with getting the right nutrition in. That was one of the things that they were able to like easily build a habit in. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even have to kind of like, you know, talk to them or, you know, like check in with them after 3 days. The body kind of just like intuits what's good for it.
Really?
Like if you've ever had
Wow.
like a food you've tried and at first you're like, oh, this tastes awful,
Yeah.
but it's like really nutritious.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize each time you come back to it, it tastes better. Like
Yeah.
some signal in the body that's like, oh, I recognize this. The body is telling you something subconsciously that you want it or need it or it's good for you.
Yeah, 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 definitely. So you're very like just health focused in general. It sounds like, you know, at first it was kind of, I mean, you started this journey because, you know, you were in sports and everything. And then you saw the effect that it started having on people you were helping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has has it since then, and I mean, maybe it has always been this for you, but like, has it since then, you know, become like a guide for you? Because I mean, this is kind of how we got on the topic in the first place was, you know, I was just talking about how, you know, right now in my life, there's so many things going right. And like, I feel like I'm in a great spot, you know, location wise, friends wise, socially. I'm doing, you know, I'm doing all the things that I've ever wanted to do. And yet somehow I still feel kind of depressed and sad a little bit, you know, a little sad boy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you kind of had just immediately, I feel like your trainer, you know, your inner trainer just took over, and your natural response was just be like, all right, well, let's start checking off the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so one, do you apply that to yourself, and two, like, how did that become like a natural habit for you? You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, try to apply it to myself, but like all humans, like, you know, do as I say, not as I do. I've always had a joke with like a lot of my friends that have been close. It's like I'm kind of both ends of the spectrum on like extremely unhealthy and then
Yeah.
very healthy. And I
Right.
think I come out to
Balance.
somewhere. Yeah, it is balance, you know?
Yeah, can
but
we
I
talk
come
about
out to
chops for
somewhere-
a second?
Yeah, oh God, man. Dude, yeah, chops. To the kids at home, stay away from that. But, you know, it also is pretty good from time to time.
Pretty good from time. Well, you know, I'm not afraid to, you know, you don't have to talk about whatever you do, but I'm not afraid to like kind of go out on a limb and say that I love to be a degenerate. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
me too.
like I said, as much as I love chicken nuggets, I do like drinking, and I do like, you know, smoking my weed, and occasionally I have a little spliff. You know what I mean? I'm a
Oh, yeah.
big tobacco guy. So, you know, for me, I try to combat that with running in the morning, you know, to help my lungs, and working out on a regular basis to kind of keep that regulated. And of course, at some point, I will potentially, you know, give that part of it up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't think I'll ever be able to give up weed fully, unfortunately.
Dude, I kind of feel the same, man.
Yeah.
You know, like I try to do as much as I can health wise,
Mhm.
but also coming from the understanding that, yeah, I'm an imperfect human. I'm
Right.
gonna have these, you know, cravings, these issues.
Well, it's like, it's also fun. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's bad for me, but we're here. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Only for a short time.
Yeah.
And why not have a fun time while you're doing it? Because we are going to die eventually, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you never know this day and age. You got that guy Brian Johnson, who's I don't know if you've heard of him.
Don't know
but
who that is.
his like whole thing is don't die. He's like doing this crazy.
That's his whole thing?
Yeah, that's like he started a brand around it even, but he's doing like $3 million a year to turn back the clock on his body, and it's actually crazy.
Whoa.
His is one of the most like profound. Like if you just look at a picture of him 10 years ago,
Yeah.
like overweight tech guy,
Yeah.
CEO, was not caring for his health at all, and now I think he's mid 40s. He might even be like late 40s. He's got a kid that's like 18, but he looks like he could be late 20s. Like he turned back the clock like crazy. Obviously, he's doing stuff that the regular person's not going to do probably for another 25, 30 years just based on price, let alone based on like the time that he has to put into it. But it's cool to see like we're kind of getting towards that. And his whole like thesis was, you know, we've talked about longevity, escape velocity, like where science is going to continue to add years to your life.
Sure.
at the rate that you're aging. So at some point, it might add a year for every year that you live because of different breakthroughs. But he, kind of asked the question. He sold his company for hundreds of $1 million. He was like, "Are we there yet? Like, has anyone actually like
tried,
really like done everything?"
Yeah.
And so that was his thing. He's doing like everything, and he was putting it all out for free.
No time to die. Oh, for free. That's
yeah,
crazy.
everything was on. Now he's like transitioning. It's been like 2 years transitioning to some like paid stuff.
Yeah.
But for the first few years, everything was just on YouTube and on his website for free. Everything that he was doing, all the results he was getting.
Very cool. Very interesting.
Wild stuff.
Kind of scary, but yeah.
definitely kind of scary.
Yeah. But so like going back to it, like when you are feeling a certain way, or you hear people that are feeling a certain way, what are the boxes for you, and like what order? Where do you start at, and what do you work down to? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like we were talking that last week, or when we were watching the Super Bowl, definitely hitting on the things that most people are deficient in, especially in the U.S. Magnesium, that was one of the ones we were talking about, because just with soil depletion, the nutrient status in the soil is not quite as good as it used to be. It's even half as good as what it was for our parents. So every bit of produce that you're having likely doesn't have quite as much nutrition that your parents eating the same, apple or cabbage, spinach, whatever. So looking at that, but specifically magnesium, just because that's a master regulator in the body. It's like involved in over 300 reactions. You need it for everything. And I get migraines. Magnesium's one of the best things for that. But generally, you just like look at overall population status. 90% of people
magnesium
are deficient.
blast. Like you said, it has because there's different. Breakthrough.
Yeah,
because there's magnesium that'll make you shit, and I was like, is that the one that I want? And you're like, you want a little bit of that?
Yeah. Yeah, the magnesium citrate, that one's gonna make you like shit quicker,
right?
But which can be really useful at times. I'm sure you've experienced that. Yeah.
And it's magnesium, so it's kind of healthy. It's good for you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to help, but if you're looking to get a reduction in anxiety or improvement in sleep, I would definitely want to at least have magnesium glycinate in there, if not all the forms. And magnesium breakthrough is one of those that has 7 different forms, magnesium. But yeah, like to your question, what are the things that 90% of people are deficient in?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to hit.
Right. So and that's not even one I've never, like, most people say, like, fitness, make sure you're getting your fruits and veggies, which probably is like the magnesium in there, but then also sun, which we kind of talked about a little bit as well. Yeah, I think sun is a big one.
And that's another where it is like 80% plus of at least the U.S. is deficient.
Oh, I absolutely am. I mean, I live in Philadelphia. I don't know how you get any sun in this city.
Dude, barely. Honestly, this is one thing that I feel like I've been thinking about more, like over the last couple of years.
Really?
When you're living in a city center, it's kind of difficult to get direct sun. Like, unless you have a balcony.
Even if you go out during the day, you're going to be surrounded by buildings that are covering the sun half of the time. Yeah. It's crazy.
And this might sound crazy to people. I don't know. Yeah. But, like, in the winter, living in Philly for the last few years, I've now, like, thought about what streets I have to walk at what time.
Oh, really? You got it down to a science.
Yeah, like it sounds whack, but like if I want to go out and like get a walk and get in the sun for 25 minutes, I don't want to waste more than half of that not actually being in the sun because you're just blocked by the buildings.
Yeah, I need to start doing that because I'm starting to like measure the time that the sun is like in my backyard and then when it's actually in my street because there's really only like a like maybe a 2-hour gap back here and then like a 3-hour gap in the front, which is nutty. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, because we think about it, at different times we would be in the sun so much more. And even probably like 50 years ago with buildings not being quite as tall, you could get to the sun quicker.
Right,
So that's something with like urban planning that I think would play into potentially, whether it's having more balconies, whether it's having certain types of glass that just like let more light in. It's tough because the city's already built. Like, it's harder because
we can't unbuild.
We're not
the city.
starting from scratch.
Tear it down, dude. Let's bring it all down.
Honestly, I mean that's why whether it's insane. I don't know. I think Akon was doing it. Kanye trying to build his own city.
Oh yeah,
or these other tech
I think
people.
It was Akon.
I think Akon did it in Africa.
In Africa, right? Yeah. Dude, Akon's killing it out here. That's crazy. He's
Akon, get some good sunlight there.
Get in the bag and taking it to Africa.
Yeah.
So sunlight for sure. Magnesium. What was again? How did you even find magnesium as like an answer?
I think if you start digging around, like for about like anxiety symptoms, you'll see that pop up pretty quick.
Yeah. You've
But
always
just
been like
seeing
a
how,
scientifically oriented person.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
definitely. Like in college, I know it kind of is confusing given where I ended up, but I was a geology major.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense though. Yeah.
but it was like it was about thinking on long time frames, long
Mm,
time horizons, and I think that was something that, especially when you think of the fitness industry where I ended up, most people are not applying that. Everything you see, like from a marketing perspective, abs in 30 days, like
yeah.
60-day shred,
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of the stuff we need to do is just like long-term habits. Like
Right.
it's not like these go crazy for 60 days and then just like
It's
pack it
never
all
a
right
get
back
rich
on.
quick or like a get fit quick type of thing. It's like
Yeah.
you really have to commit to
And I think
making
that's tough
habits.
with you've probably heard of it. It's gotten real big in the last few years. Ozempic, Wegovy,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
GLP-1 agonists. They're have kind of made it feel like to people like, oh, I just gotta, inject this thing once a week and like all my health's gonna be fine.
Right.
But it still doesn't do the baseline foundation that you need to do.
Sure.
And so if you're not doing that, you're still gonna have issues with your health. And especially if you're not strength training, getting enough protein, you're seeing a lot of the people on Ozempic and Wegovy having issues with lean mass loss. So whether it's muscle or bone density loss, and that's something I even saw with my partner as well. That I was telling you.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
ex-girlfriend, she
Right.
had a lot of issues
Yeah.
with losing out on weight a lot, and the energy has to come from somewhere,
Sure.
And so bone density went down as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that whole situation that kind of like really shook you, and that was just an ex partner having really, like you said, they're just not hitting the baseline for. And was there like anything chemically wrong, or was it all like a mental thing?
Um, chemically, I'm not 100% sure because I guess we would need like more tests on that.
Sure. Yeah.
But I know that like growing up, she had issues with eating disorders. Hospitalized when she was like 12 or 13, and so that can definitely play a role down the line. Whether it's just like gut diversity issues with digestion later on.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it, because like she obviously had those issues before, but like COVID kind of amplified it. Like you have more of that isolation. You're not as motivated to go out. And you start having a little, maybe you only eat 1% less the one day, and then it's 1% less the next day. But you play that out over 2 years, and it's like, holy shit, you're only getting like 30% what you used to be getting.
Yeah.
And so when you see that kind of the slow but
Decay.
continuous decay, it's tough to see. And I'm sure so many different people saw that during COVID for, a wide range of things. But I would say, that got me more interested into the nutrition, trying to understand more, understanding gut health, because that's still a frontier that we still don't really understand that much at all.
Really?
We're getting there, but there's still so many questions to be answered. And we might not get them fully answered. Like that's what's kind of interesting with the human body. It's like it's one of the most complex systems we have, and we got to keep asking questions. We got to keep uncovering what are even the right questions to ask.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. So what questions do you feel like you've conquered so far?
conquered's a strong
I know.
word. Yeah.
Was there ever like a big win that you had like since then, where you kind of figured something out, at least for yourself mentally, where you're like, wow, that really can help me and help people that I know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The one that's probably most profound for me was with my mom. So she also started to have health issues, and they were probably going on behind the scenes before COVID as well.
Right.
But it brought it all to the surface.
Sure.
She definitely got very isolated, and then started to have physical and mental breaks where she wasn't properly eating enough. But I got to see after she like had medication, and we had all the things I was talking about: magnesium, vitamin D, fish oil. Trying to get all that in a proper spot, making sure she's getting enough protein, walking every day, getting like actual sunlight. Because even if you're supplementing with vitamin D, you want to actually get the sun as well.
Yeah.
But I unfortunately saw her decline when she was no longer living with me. And in 2 to 3 months, she was still taking all of the prescribed medication from the hospital, but she had stopped using and taking the magnesium every day, stopped taking athletic greens every day. and she started having these mental breaks again.
Hmm.
And that was definitely one of the toughest times in my life. Absolutely. I struggled mightily, and I was not the person I would want to be
Right.
going through that. But it did prove to me in that time that, these pharmaceutical drugs, even though they were properly prescribed to her, they're not the answer.
They're not the end all be all.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
they're not even like enough of a band-aid where if you're not doing the foundational stuff, like they can still cover up.
Wow.
Maybe they can when you're in your like 30s and 40s.
Mm-hmm.
She's in her 60s. Seeing that, it definitely gave me some validity in like the angles I was going about it. I was like, okay, this stuff is actually like working
Right.
because it's working better than this prescribed medication, and it ended up working a lot better, and it's a lot cheaper than having the inpatient
Yeah.
stays that she had.
Right. Yeah. So that was again just the basics: walking, eating, getting good sleep. You know what I mean? It was just all of those things combined. The magnesium that you
Yeah,
kind of
that plays in for the sleep.
right, that you had found out. It was all these basic things that you started just. Did you help her like kind of just get on that routine and develop those habits?
Yeah, absolutely, because
Okay.
she was at that time struggling to like have any
Mm-hmm.
habit formation or even just like activities of daily living for a while she wasn't able to do.
Right.
And then so you see like, and it was that 1% improvement, but going the other way this time. It was nice to see like,
Yeah.
a little bit better each day. And then after a couple months, she didn't need me hovering over in
Right.
regards to the health stuff. Like she wanted to go walk. She
Yeah.
wanted to like exercise a little bit. Like I remember I was so stoked because she came up to me and she was like, I think I want to like start doing like crunches and push-ups again. Like how should I do it? And I was like so
Wow.
stoked that like she came up to me about it.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing when you're trying to tell someone like, hey, like this will be good for your health, try to do it. And, a lot of times people are reluctant.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone comes up to you about it, especially, it's like, oh, they really want to do it. And
Right.
you're, especially like your own family.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost the difference. Like when you see somebody suffering and you know why they're suffering, even if you tell them, even if you tell them why you know that they're suffering, they have to come to their own realization themselves. You know what I mean? They have to come to, it's about change, right? It's like people don't change unless they choose to change. And to do that, at least you were there to kind of get the ball rolling, right? But again, it really comes back to, in the end, it's her and her will to want to overcome that ailment or, to get healthy again and live a more productive lifestyle, So she's doing good now?
Yeah, winter's definitely tougher than summer.
Sure.
And I'm, it's probably like that for everybody in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, she's doing way better than she has the last 2 winters, so I do feel good about that.
Nice.
And I'm sure once we get to summer, she'll be firing on all cylinders again.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, going back to checking the boxes like you had brought up, I did briefly mention that fish oil one. So that one's been huge.
Okay.
And there's been some pretty impressive studies looking at because most people, it's another one where 80% plus in the U.S. are deficient or insufficient in their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Because a lot of the processed foods we eat, we just eat a lot more omega-6s right now than we ever have in human history, and we're getting a lot less omega-3s than we typically do. And so that ratio constitutes and creates the cell membrane of all of the cells in your body.
Wow.
And so it affects the permeability and nutrition, different nutritional components able to get in or out of the cell.
Yeah.
And so having that ratio all jacked up, like in modern times, typical American diet is probably at 20-1. Hunter-gatherers were at 1-1. Optimal typically is like 4-1.
Okay.
For us, but yeah, so we're like way off.
Right.
That's crazy. And so whether it's eating, fatty fish, or just supplementing with it, it can be a game changer. And there's studies showing that just getting someone, if they were deficient while they're having depressive symptoms, just getting them back up to a sufficient level, so like less than 10-1 on that ratio, is more effective than SSRIs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was one that I then pushed hard for my brother because I know we had talked that was something he was really struggling with.
He hates
it was something
fish.
I've struggled with. No, yeah. Thank God he loves fish because that made it so much better.
Yeah.
Because he, unlike other family members, he doesn't really want to take like supplement pills as much.
Yeah. I know people like that as well.
Yeah, I totally respect it. Like, who wants to actually take like 20 pills a day?
Yeah.
Like,
Fucking,
I'd rather just eat good food. But he got into like sardines and shit.
Oh,
So
wow.
he eats like a crazy amount, and they have a ton. And you're getting a lot of protein. But he said it's been a game changer for him.
Wow.
Especially with that mental health. So, yeah, it's been really nice to see that he's doing as well as he's been in like pretty much as long as I can remember.
Nice.
So he's in better shape. He says his mind's as sharp as it's been,
Nice.
probably since high school. So that's been really cool to see, and that's what's so funny, that it is these little things.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that just like these little supplements or something could change your entire life. You know?
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. What other magic boxes do we have to check to
Dude,
get
I
the
think
answer,
the next frontier is peptides for sure.
What is peptides? So this is also, it sounds like it goes along with my next question was like, you know, what have you conquered, I asked, and what are you planning on? What's your next venture in this? Yeah, peptides?
Yeah.
Is this your new thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, trying to get into it. It's definitely more of a harder thing, I would think, to get people into. Actually, but it connects with what we were just talking about. So Ozempic, Wegovy, those GLP-1 agonists, that's the first kind of like mainstream peptide.
Okay.
So that's a peptide. And a peptide is just a chain of amino acids that's 5 to 49 long. And once you hit 50, that's just a protein.
Oh,
you know?
Okay.
So amino acid chains 50 plus, those are the proteins in our body. So you can think of them, they're a little bit smaller, which can be useful for what their purpose is directing resources in the body. So they can be really impactful for someone, you know, as we've seen with Ozempic, with people losing weight, because I'm not really familiar with like how Ozempic is working as much, but it does affect your hunger, I believe, through ghrelin, which is a compound that modulates how hungry you feel. So it's able to shut that off, so people end up eating less calories. But there's a whole bunch of different peptides, and unfortunately, there's a little bit of the murky waters right now with like legality and getting it, because the FDA is doing potentially like banning a lot of peptides and the ability for people to get it. Because a lot of times you can just get it through a compounding pharmacy, or if you go through your doctor, with a specific ailment, you can get it that way as well. And but there's ones for muscle building, there's ones for healing. The most common that people may have heard of, BPC-157, just body protection compound. So if you have an injury, if you have a gut issue, even like a wound, open wound, that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And that's the only one that I've personally taken.
It just kind of speeds up the regeneration process in a way. Well, in a way,
yeah, so it directs resources within the body,
just
to a specific area.
Yeah.
If you inject it, it is one of the ones that you are able to take right now orally, and that's going to give you kind of more of a systemic effect. But if you, say you tore your ACL, like you would want to do the injection near the knee.
Jab them.
Yeah, right there, dude.
And the knee, dude? That sounds like it hurts.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want it. And that's why I do like have some hesitancy with this being kind of the next frontier, because most people are not going to inject themselves.
Yeah.
That's just like,
given.
Yeah,
people
like, because we
the
talk
jab.
About like going towards like the optimal stuff. Yeah, people don't want the jab, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's So, but also I wanted to cover why is the FDA like banning them? What's the bad parts? What's the negatives?
I mean, the negatives for them, I guess,
is that people will get too strong.
Well, it's like the risk that people are going to use it like off label, overuse it. There's always going to be risks with that with everything.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, unfortunately, like a lot of it is likely for profit, because what the companies that produced Ozempic and Wegovy, it's like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. They change the peptide a little bit. They add like one compound onto it, and then they can patent it. Because kind of like what we were talking about with like why we don't hear as much about magnesium or vitamin D, it's because you can't patent it. It's it's a generic thing.
Yeah, it's a generic thing. Yeah, that's crazy.
And so the same thing with the base peptides,
right?
Because they're naturally occurring compounds. You can't, and they're already like within your body.
Right.
So no company can patent it that way. But if they ban people being able to get the generic forms, they're gonna allow these companies to then test and get a patent on the compound that just has a little thing different. It still functions the same.
Yeah, and then they can charge like $1 billion extra for it. Or whatever.
So that's the unfortunate thing with it. But with like even supplements, people can abuse it. So
right.
There's definitely the risk with that.
Definitely. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing for me is that it sounds like a lot of these things are like just used to, at least the things that you're interested in, used to help you maintain a baseline health so that you can go about your day and, do the things that you actually want to do. It's not like these things are trying to make you like a better person or overactive or more productive. It's not like a stimulant, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All of these things sounds just like, how about we get us to a baseline mental health and like a baseline physical health so that you can go about your day without, hating yourself or without hurting and aching throughout the day. You know what I mean?
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's like, at the end of the day, what most people want to be able to go through life is being pain-free in their joints, having stable energy throughout the day, and, having enough energy to be able to be creative, have empathy, have curiosity.
Right.
Because those things require energy. And if your metabolism is not functioning well, it's going to make it a lot tougher for your brain to function as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the stuff that I got into as well, because a lot of times it's like, what is the majority struggling with? Coming out of college, it's funny because I actually said it before I ever personally had issues with it, but it started to kind of become clear like mental health issues was going to be one of the premier issues for our generation. Like I think it's going to be something we struggle with.
Yeah.
We're, one of the first generations that's kind of like grown up on the internet. We haven't had the best food system while we've been alive.
Sure.
All that stuff. So, definitely trying to just make it so that people function. Cause I think it's really easy to not see. Obviously, like we've kind of overcome the stigma a little bit. Like I appreciate your openness talking with it.
Yeah.
I really appreciated like my friends group being open with talking to me, talking to them. Cause like almost all of us are struggling with it, know, at some level or another. So trying to be able to help that became more inspiring to me than like working with athletes. Obviously, like that's cool too. Wow. But like this is kind of like the more profound area to focus on for me is just like how can we help? Because
athletes are a certain subgenre of people, but what if we helped everybody? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like a lot of the training styles, like you can implement it in a slightly different way, but for the general population, it's going to help people a lot. And the nutrition. Oh, but the other frontier, because I did want to say this, hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Okay.
That one's going to be huge.
What is this? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
So this
is going to be huge.
Huge. But people may have heard of it. There's a Progressive commercial where Flo's sister jokes about it. She's like, my hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I need oxygen. But they mentioned it there. Aaron Rodgers was using it in his recovery from.
I need oxygen.
Oxygen. But you're just sitting in a like inflated chamber if it's a soft top, breathing 90-95% oxygen in a pressurized environment. So that's where you get the hyperbaric, barometric pressure. So increased with that, and then that pressure is going to force the oxygen into all the cells in your body. So whether you're trying to like recover from fracture, a wound, torn ligament like Aaron Rodgers was, or even concussions, and stroke as well. Like that's even now one of the 14, might be more than 14 now actually by the time we're here, but that's covered by insurance.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, so stroke is actually one of those.
Okay.
And these machines were first developed for scuba divers. So people that were having issues with the bends, like coming up, changing in that pressure, this would normalize them again. But then we started to see it had a lot of like profound help for people on their health. And so, I've had a lot of concussions in my life. It's something I worry about for sure. Spending time in the hyperbaric while I was at Restore was really, really helpful for that. We had a guy who was a young MMA guy. He was like 21. Had a pretty bad concussion, and you could see interacting with him like he was kind of struggling. He did the full protocol, 40 sessions over 8 weeks. So he's coming in 5 times a week, an hour at a time. Wow. So yeah, it's definitely time consuming. But when you're in there, at least with the soft tops, you can bring in like laptop, phone, book. So, so you can just do whatever while you're in there, or just take a nap.
Or
Like
meditate. You know what I mean? You could do anything in there.
that would be ideal.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
if you
yeah.
can go in there and like I did start to experiment
Because
with
it's
this
all
a
about
little bit.
breath, you know what I mean? And like breathing in and that oxygen and, you know, in that pressure and everything. That would probably be very profound.
Yeah. So the thing that I really think would be the most profound thing we can do for mental health right now, I started, you know, dabble with this a little bit with the access I had to a hyperbaric
Yeah.
over the last year. But going in there, potentially even doing like low dose, micro dose,
wow.
psilocybin,
Sure.
but eventually building up to some sort of macro dose with a practitioner, a clinician that's
Yeah.
able to then guide you through it while you're in the hyperbaric, but they're outside.
Right.
And you can have headphones on, potentially doing like, if you've ever heard of the app Synctuition, so it's like binaural beat
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah. Okay.
So something like that
Yeah.
is you can then, you know, connecting the hemispheres in the brain,
Right.
getting this increased oxygen at the same time that you're getting this blood flow to different parts of the brain, connection with the psychedelics.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really profound thing for people.
Right. What was your experience with the experimenting?
I came out there feeling amazing. I was like, I had more energy than I probably had since high school.
Yeah.
Like brain fog gone completely.
Wow.
Like I felt so sharp, and
Yeah.
I really haven't felt like that since high school.
Okay.
Some of that could be concussion. Some of that could just be normal aging. I don't know if everybody else feels like that.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. For sure.
And then I was able to work out like I hadn't in a while. Like endurance was heightened. So
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
if you're doing like any sort of endurance event, like a triathlon, going in the hyperbaric before, get your cells fully saturated with oxygen,
Yeah.
probably a good call.
Wow. And so do you see this becoming more accessible to people?
Yeah.
Okay. Like how long, do you know how long it's been around? I guess that's kind of a specific question.
I'm not sure when it was first invented, but I think it's been like semi-common for 30 plus years, 40 years.
Wow.
Because I first heard about it, it's probably like 2010, Ocho Cinco on ESPN.
Yeah.
They were talking about him having one in his house. But at the
Wow.
time, that was like 125 grand.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, wow, that thing's so cool.
Right.
And that's what I thought about this year when I got in for the first time. I was like, I'm finally getting in one.
I'm on Ocho Cinco's level, dude.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
but now they're only like, for like pretty solid ones, still like they're still 25 grand, but you can get like a lower level one for under 10 grand.
Right. Or it sounds like you can rent. It sounds like other places have them and you can go into those
Yeah.
rooms and like, you know, like a gym membership that has, I don't think gyms have them yet or whatever, but
Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, gyms start rolling that out. That would be huge. Because you could get them for like sessions under 100, even down to 50.
Okay.
And I was talking to a client. She would go down to Colombia, and they had hyperbaric sessions that only cost her $30. You know, she is a Colombian citizen, so I don't know if that was paying into the price point.
Yeah.
But that was cool while being at Restore, seeing like all these different, you know, therapies that were 20 years ago only for elite athletes. Like
Yeah.
just
Right.
prohibitively expensive.
Right.
You know, whether it's the Normatec compression legs, cryotherapy, red light therapy, the hyperbaric or IVs. We're getting at that point now where it's like it's still unfortunately not like available for everybody
Right.
on the price point, but we're gonna get there, and that's something like I do want to have a role in this industry, trying to help proliferate a lot of the tech, because there's so much of this tech coming out that I think most people like have no idea that
I
it's
never heard
out
about
there,
it before, yeah.
and it's so effective for helping people.
Yeah.
Like we waste so much time on our health doing stuff that's like not even really that helpful.
Right.
And now with some of this tech, 10, 20 years down the line, you know, someone with $100, $50 gym membership is going to be able to use all this stuff and get their like health routine to 2 hours or less per week.
Yeah. That'd be well, and we're gonna need oxygen when it starts running out in our world. You
I know, dude. Yeah, we just gotta open those up and have it start pumping out.
Yeah, start pumping it into the air, I guess. No, but that actually does sound amazing. I would love to try that sometime. I like, obviously all the benefits of oxygen, the thing that we need to live, would be ideal and easily accessible. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, some people say that you know, the world is not in a great place, and maybe in some aspects it's not, but at least we live in 2024 where the technology is getting better, and that there is hope in some areas as well.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't mean to zoom out that far and get like philosophical.
Oh
But
no, man, I love it. I love doing that all the time. My dad's a philosopher,
really,
by nature. Yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
By studies, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
By his degrees.
By his degrees. Yeah. But seriously, like I just it's a lot of people want to complain about the time era that we're in, and for me, I've just been increasingly grateful for, like, as much as you want to say you can get sucked into your phone, you can also find so many helpful resources through your phone as well. It just depends on how you use it. So, being able to look up hyperbolic oxidation. I don't know what the
hyperbaric.
Yeah, oxygen timbre. I can't say it.
You can just say HBOT.
HBOT, is that what they call it?
Yeah,
dude, that's way better. You should have said
way
that
better.
Yeah. HBOT.
Yeah, we got the HBOT. No, but I feel you, man. The optimism's key because as tough as it is, like globally with everything that's going on, for our generation, every generation, it's all pointless if we're not like kind of trying to approach the day with some optimism, getting out there. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the health. Like, right. I feel like a lot of times I am on both. I experience both extremes within a day.
Yeah.
But it comes out to, I probably come across as a semi-positive person.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just refreshing to hear somebody that at least does the work to help themselves feel better, and instead of kind of relishing in a sad feeling, which can be nice, don't get me wrong, but like you said, you come across as semi-positive, so I appreciate you coming on to talk about this and share that message, you know what I mean?
Dude, 100%. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So I'll give you a little mic bump. I don't know, usually I don't know if you want to do a little shout out for do you have any projects or Instagram or anything like that you care to shout out? Or
you can find me at Ayres on Instagram, Ayres.
Okay.
Brevity Longevity Fitness as well.
There you go.
Yeah, keep an eye out for a spot in Philly because I am trying to open up my own spot.
Okay.
And potentially, ideally putting all these new tech we have together.
That'd be sick.
So yeah, keep an eye out for that, man.
Cool. All right, I'll give you like a little mic bump and we'll wrap up.
Oh.
Cheers.